At first light, Toronto police plan to intensify their search for two missing elderly men in the city's northwest. Police have released surveillance footage of 98-year-old Leonard Simpson, not seen since around noon on Monday in the Kennelton Drive and John Garland Boulevard area. And the search also continues for 83-year-old Shandalal Gandhi. He was last spotted around 5 p.m. Tuesday near Kipling and Steeles Avenue West. Police are asking you to keep a lookout for either man and to check your backyards or property. Here's a live look now at 23 Division, who will be setting up a police command post later this morning. Police are ramping up their search with officers on horseback and riding ATVs in the area. A funeral is set for 11 o'clock this morning for 4 members of an Oshawa family killed in a shooting that's shocked the community. 50-year-old Chris Traynor, a popular high school teacher, and 3 of his children, 20-year-old Bradley, 15-year-old Adelaide, and 11-year-old Joseph were killed in their home on September 4th. A 50-year-old woman was also injured in the shooting. An uninvited guest died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the home. A motive is still being investigated. Only invited guests are allowed into today's service. The family has released a statement thanking the community for their support. As the province prepares to keep a lid on the number of new COVID cases ahead of a possible second wave, the Premier is warning of stiff fines for those breaking social guideline rules.
There's going to be some severe fines for people who want to ignore the regulations and the guidelines, so it's going to be severe. They're going to be the highest in the country.
So what can you expect? Well, the government is considering lowering the number of people allowed to gather. Currently, 50 people, that's 50, are allowed indoors and 100 outdoors. An announcement on rolling that back is expected shortly. Concern is also growing about COVID testing. The wait in some parts of the province has been hours long. The Premier also promising to fix that by setting up more testing centers, some of which he suggests could be located in pharmacies. In Toronto, Mayor Tory says we all have a part in reducing the spread of the virus, a part to play.
Reduce the social gathering limits, enhance enforcement on existing restrictions, and expand the mandatory mask requirements. Over the coming days, we will be moving to act on all 3 of these areas, some of which will require cooperation with our partners in the provincial government.
Toronto's top doctor says about 50% of cases reported throughout the last 6 weeks come from individuals who know each other. Officials are looking into 22 cases connected to 4 weddings. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie says they're expecting to extend a mandatory face covering bylaw to January 2021. She says they're concerned about reports of large parties and gatherings too.
We're hearing people take far too many liberties, and frankly, if we're not careful enough, these bubbles just might burst.
So we're going to get the latest. Just after the news at 7, we'll hear from Mayor John Tory about the possibility of tighter COVID restrictions and other issues facing the city. Ontario now has its first full closure of a school because of a COVID-19 outbreak. Fellows High School in Pembroke, that's northwest of Ottawa, now fully shut down after 3 COVID cases were detected at the school. Administrators say in this letter to parents that the building is closed until further notice, but learning will continue online. According to provincial data, 35 schools have reported at least 1 case of COVID-19. Now, 7 of those reported cases are at the TDSB, just as the board welcomes back high school students for in-person learning today. Now, to reduce contact between students, secondary schools are following a new scheduling format you're probably familiar with, where students take 2 classes per term, split into 4 quadmesters, the new word we're learning. Toronto elementary students have gradually started their return already, while the board's new virtual school is set to begin next Tuesday following multiple delays. Coming up at 8, we'll get back to school ready live with students at William Lyon Mackenzie Collegiate Institute. Now to Ottawa. After completing a 2-day cabinet retreat, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is looking ahead to next week's throne speech, teasing details about his bold new vision for Canada's future. Increasing COVID-19 cases were front and center, even impacting MPs personally. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole is isolating after an aide tested positive, as is Ontario's Labour Minister Monty McNaughton, who says in a statement he had dinner with O'Toole last week, where they took off their masks to eat and pose for pictures. Now, members of the Bloc Québécois are also isolating after a staffer tested positive, while the spouse of leader Yves-François Blanchet has tested positive for the virus. And in world news, Spain, one of the early COVID-19 hotspots, is facing an alarming resurgence of the virus, recording daily cases in the thousands.